So thanks first of all for everyone to agree to come on this panel. We've got about 25 minutes to discuss a little bit how AI is playing out in the respective organization. But I also want to open it up if you've got any pressing questions to make it inclusive. So please raise your hand and we will try to incorporate the question as well. And Mark can sprint around with the microphone. But I wanted to maybe just start with a very simple question, although quite a loaded question, and maybe start with Anil. Over the last 12 months, since the hype of ChatGPT, and I really have to say, like, ChatGPT is not really an enterprise solution as such, but obviously it generated a lot of interest in large language models and generative AI. How has this impacted you in your engagement with customers, in your business plans going forward? And please don't limit it to just generative AI, because obviously there is this underlying AI as well. If you could just maybe say, like, how your business is impacted by the hype.
Thank you. So the large language models has actually changed the whole landscape of data centers. So if I remember correctly, when we were into data centers as in Airtel, we were making 3 kilowatt data centers. And then over the last 15 odd year, the 3 kilowatt had gone into 12 to 15 kilowatt, and that was the finite limits. When we talk about the generative AIs and those platforms, they start at 30 kilowatts per rack and start to go up. And that kind of heat load in the data center changes the whole data center design. Right from floor loading increasing from some 900 kgs to 2500 kgs, to the amount of mechanical systems, because you cannot have air-cooled cooling now. You need to have liquid cooling, so you need to bring out the heat from there, from those servers. Plus, the network has gone through a change. No longer are 10G, 40 gig works. We are talking about networks between 100 to 800 Gbps between the servers. So the whole infra piece has started to change. The change that is starting to happening in our customers' setups is, we are finding a lot more GPUs. It started with the government safe cities where the video analytics was in place. We started to get because that was only inference engines, so between 20 to 30 GPUs per customers. But now slowly, as people start to make their own learning platforms, we have saw this increase to 100, 200 to 400 GPUs, even in large enterprises. And that essentially means that IT load of 100 to 500 kilowatt is just doubling or quadrupling. It's becoming 4x from a footprint of the heat density or power consumption out there. So a lot of exciting times, a lot of changing architectures, networks, challenges that needs to be overcome. So that's our view of it.
Thank you, Anil. I want to, Sanghamitra, your organization, we had a chat yesterday, and your organization is 125 years old, so obviously a very traditional business, so gone through a lot of change over the last 100 odd years. Can you just maybe explain a little bit, like, on your AI journey, like, how long have you been on the journey, where you're at today, and how it is kind of like impacting your role today?
Yeah, thanks. So, yes, true. CESC is a private utility, electricity utility, which has been around for 125 years. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the journey for some time, apart from my public sector stint. So, now coming back to the specifics of AI, AI has been around for quite a few decades. And we did work when we were students too on AI. But the last decade or so has really seen the enterprise, applications. And as far as utilities go, I can share a few use cases, both in our organization as well as other places where I've seen and worked on it. One I would touch upon is the asset management part, especially in generation plants. See, for manufacturing or for any asset which is critical, the maintenance part involves two parts. One is the human aspect, the other is the equipment health. So the way maintenance used to be was RM at a point, routine maintenance. And preventive maintenance. So what ML has really added to our asset management and O&M operations has been the element of predictive maintenance. Now, for last 5 or 6 years, we have a system in place which, collects the data from all our equipments through the sensors and through the ML tool and visualization. It really gives our operational engineers a very good insight into maintenance activities well beyond that which was planned or which is, on a breakdown mode. On the B2C or in the distribution area, again, chatbots are almost given for all utilities now. Conversational AI in the form of voice bots have been integrated with CRM systems, and they take the load off the call centers to an extent, and also help, the manpower which has been freed up to give some more qualitative input into the system. Apart from that, the other aspect of AI which we have used is, RPA, which does away with certain routine jobs, both from the applicant point of view, because if you are aware that as an applicant to electricity, just like maybe banks, there are some formalities which need to be carried out by the applicant, and then the business has to go through certain checks, balances, certain decisions. So RPA is the tool which segregates this, and ultimately it is our district engineers who take the final decision, but that takes away a lot of pain or a lot of time and effort which used to go into the process. Consumer correspondence, segregation by the nature, that is another area. There are a few more areas which we are looking into for RPA. And generative AI is also going to be a good path breaker for us, because there are plenty of, documentation areas which probably need a little bit more of effort, and due to the time-consuming business of electricity and technology, maybe documentation is a part which wasn't up to speed out of other business constraints. So that's an area where we can really gain input from the Gen AI as I see right now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Abhijit, we talked about, we heard from data center of the IT services from a utility point of view. A bank is working in a different environment. You obviously have a lot of data, as utilities have actually as well, but you're also facing very specific regulations and restrictions and security concerns. So how aggressively can you push the AI roadmap? So, how much is it impacting your job, and where are potentially the limitations on, what you can do as a bank?
I think you rightly said that we have a lot of data, right? And for us, for banks, where the most important piece for a bank is credibility. Yep. Customers would want to associate with the bank only if they see credibility, right? 3 areas where we have pushed in these are still projects underway, but we see a very good progress. One is fraud management. So right from a customer trying to interact, transact, we are trying to use intelligence. Say, for example, Abhijit generally transacts from Mumbai or Pune. Suddenly you see a transaction from some other geography. We would want to validate that. It may be a genuine transaction, but we may want to validate that, right? We generally see the transactions of a particular value, and suddenly you see a jump. We would want to validate that. So this is intelligence of data analytics being used to look at, is there a fraudulent transaction? Second is in case of user behavior, because that's also very, very important. See, what happens is, suppose if someone or my passwords, my credentials, and etc. are compromised. Now what? So someone else will be using it, good. But when I type that password, when I type my password versus only if you type my password, the speed, the pace, the intensity would be different, right? we are trying to look at capturing that and seeing that, why is this happening? Okay? User behavior, right? Third, we are trying to use it in, so fraud and transaction management I mentioned. The last piece of it where I think we have kind of done a really good job, still work under progress, we have not announced it, is kind of simulating attacks. Use the capability of AI and ML by the red teaming and kind of actually launch simulated attacks within the organization. It will be very difficult for people within the organization to figure out if this is a genuine attack or not. But by this, we test the efficacy of the processes and the defense mechanisms we have built, and it gives us a very good feedback on what is the efficacy of process flow and the efficacy of the incident response teams that we have, right? So these are the 3-4 areas that we have kind of already started to use a lot of AI and ML, and we see good progress.
Are you looking into generative AI as well as a bank?
Generative AI till now has been, I don't think we've found a use case for it. Yeah. Being very frank, I'm not sure, but we have not found a use case for it. Maybe within the organization, not really sure as to where we can do it, but from a customer behavior, customer insight perspective, from a customer experience perspective, yes, there are discussions going on, but do we have a ready-made use case to speak about? Not at this point in time.
Okay. Anil, I want to come back to you, or maybe ask for everyone as well. I presented in my slides some of the roadblocks and obviously the data challenge, but also the the business involvement or the gap between the business. Is this something that you experience as well, or any other challenges that you had to overcome, and anything that you can share your learnings on how you approach this?
Yeah, sure. So see, business was always kept away from the technology. The way of making money or the bottom lines or decisions there was sort of one barricade, and the technology was based on budgets.
Yep.
The AI connects both the dots, and that is the challenge to overcome. Now, how are we doing it? We are once again democratizing all our products, the P&L knowledge right across the teams.
Yep.
So we are doing these collaborative sessions, saying, hey, this is how we make a product, this is how the company earns, this is how it spends, and that is why when you have this tool telling you something, that is what you do.
Yeah.
Now, where are we using the tools? The tools are generally in the observability realm.
Yeah.
So basically, it's an age-old problem. When the app doesn't run, they blame the underlying systems, the database, and the operating system. The operating system guys turns to hardware and networks. Finally, all the tickets go to networks, or each one has to go through the network. Yeah. What we are trying to do from a part of MSP, that's our first use case, is that we're trying to leverage all three feeds to create a faster response. And the most important one of them is to do the diagnostics and get to the exact technical reason to both the business stakeholder as well as the technical stakeholder, saying this is the defect, this is the estimated time, this is the person who is working, and this is the impact. Yeah. That's one use case. The second use case is very simple to what Abhijit ji said. So we always had in security something known as threat intels. They are known as IOCs, indicators of compromise, IOA, indicators of attack. We have also started a vector of IOB, indicators of behavior.
Yep.
Now these indicators of behavior are the anomaly in the user behavior, anomalies in our network, for example, an inside server trying to just open a connection to outside, or any such anomaly. We are taking it or trying to curtail it as a feed throughout our SOC. So once again, each of the people in the SOC, each of the people in the NOC network side, they have to be educated, saying that this is also something that you have to work on, and what is the impact of it. So that's how we are going through it. We have not been relying so much on data cleansing, because in this manner, earlier data was never captured, and therefore it's very hard to do that data change transformation now. So what we are doing is we are starting fresh.
Yep.
Fresh data sets, people knowledge, assisted by AI.
Yep. I'm not sure if you want to join in. It's like, who owns AI in your organization? Like, is it still sitting with IT?
No, it's a mix and match, because you see most of it, like taking cue from what you said, that what were the challenges or what were some of the things we really had to keep in mind. I'll give you the example which I started with on the predictive maintenance using ML. See, historically, for cybersecurity reasons and because power utilities run extensively on OT, apart from IT, and OT being the very critical part of any manufacturing or any power utility business like DCS, PLCs, the SCADA systems. So they were air-gapped from the IT systems traditionally from security and also, a comfort, maybe I'd call it comfort level. So if you have to have sensor data coming in as a visualization mode to your engineers using AI tools, you cannot have it air-gapped. So one of the first challenges was, this IT-OT interfacing, making sure that it's unidirectional, making sure that it's secure, making sure that OT is not compromised in any way, because OT again is an area where you cannot do regular VAPT. Unlike IT systems, which can go through regular cybersecurity audits, OT is not something you can tinker with on even a production PT level. So that was one of the first things which we faced, and we took care. And business was absolutely with us. In fact, my generation business owns this project. The other on the B2C again, on the CRM or things like that, there too the business has been more than a partner, I would say. They have been enthusiastic partners, and what happens is the training data on which we use vernacular for the chatbots, because a number of our consumers are non-English speaking, of course, so it can't only be English. So the other thing which I can share, I think many of the banking or similar industries which have used vernacular chatbots have faced is it had to go through several rounds of iterative training models to really, get it. And there's dialects, there's accents, there are many challenges. So it's still a process which is going through a lot of refinement, but we face that too. But thankfully, our engineers, our leadership have been very, very upbeat about digitalization, AI, and the benefits and the value that it's really bringing on board.
Yeah.
So that's good for the technical team and technical leadership as well.
Makes it easier to push it through. Just saying, it's like if there's any question, please, raise your hand. Otherwise, Abhijit, one stat that came out from this group was that data and AI is also a driver for system modernization. And Anil also mentioned as well that there's a lot of requirements to upgrade data centers to obviously cater for the compute power that is needed to run the AI models or large language models. From Europe, because you're obviously in charge of the network security as well, how much is this impacting your infrastructure strategy in your bank as well? Is this measured on the future needs to run these AI models? So is this driving the modernization?
Yeah, so as whatever is there, so when we kind of look at future investments into network or security or into tools, right? What's important is that we kind of look at now, we've started to look at how does this, technology or the equipment as such, what levels of data structures and integration to data lakes does this have? Yeah. What's the sort of AI/ML capabilities it comes built in with inherent? Yeah. And if not, what's the data that it generates that can be used by a third-party AI/ML system, so that we derive intelligence out of it. Now, the question that you were kind of asking about who drives it, whether it is business or technology, I think what happens is that there's business obviously kind of needs good data for them to make good products, to kind of target specific markets. Right now, that's the business requirement. Now, how do you fulfill it? We kind of fulfill it with a lot of data analytics, right? So if you can kind of look at credit card behavior, which we do, then kind of looking at if someone has got an HDFC Magnus card, platinum card, and that platinum card, what's the group of users generally kind of using that platinum card for? If you have that data, you can, you can kind of modify the services that you kind of build into that specific card, right? Or kind of take that card to a specific audience. I think, so that data-based decisions has become very, very important, right? And the basic capabilities of analytics and integration into data lakes are very important.
Yeah. It's the credit card example actually that you say is quite interesting, that I sometimes know already when I do a certain transaction, I can almost time it and say, like, look, when do I get a call? And then, my bank calls me and asks, like, hey, was this legitimate? Was it you or not? The time is actually up, so I just want to ask, is there any specific question? There's one question at the front. Can we still squeeze it in?
So my question is to Ullrich. I hope I spelled it right.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do we avoid data poisoning and prompt poisoning?
Can we take this question maybe later in the Ask the Analyst session? Because then we've got
Sure.
time to answer it. Otherwise, it's sort of like this panelists are only available now, so rather direct questions for them. But it's a good question, so we come to this later.
Morning. My question is more on the lines of ransomware attacks. Now, there are theories where there are agents that sit dormant in the environment for a long time without taking any action. And what is the mechanism when we use AI/ML to identify that there is something sitting there which does not belong to us, and there should be some kind of a suspicious activity or an alert that comes through the security team that can identify or figure out what this is. Eventually, that turns out to be ransomware, but 3 months later, 4 months later, it sits dormant. So how do we try and figure out this, especially in the banking environment, which is the most critical?
Abhijit, I know you're a big fan of agents.
Yeah. So very good question. In fact, see, what happens is that with the use of AI and ML, what's very, very important that you kind of run a scan on the overall. So first thing that we'll need is visibility. One is of the assets, you have visibility. Then you look at behavior, right? Look at dormancy. Look at activity. Specific hosts transacting with which hosts, why, what sort of protocols. So if someone today is transacting with me on a TCP, suddenly he sends me a UDP packet, I am a bit cautious. Why does it need to happen? What changed, right? So this sort of detections, right? Now, and when you talk about ransomwares, there are different type of ransomwares available right now. The capability to be able to detect is, again, in the capability to be able to visualize them. When you say visualize, be able to scan, be able to collect data, be able to analyze and understand which are suspicious, which are malicious, and which are legitimate. I think that undergoes a constant change and evolution, right? And there is no straight fix that what you do today will hold good 3 months down the line. Sorry, it doesn't. Right? So that change will continue to keep happening. Your threat intels, integration to threat intels, and the mannerism in which you use that intelligence back into your own user behavior, network, and traffic engineering. That I think is very, very important.
I think we're unfortunately out of time. Well, it says time is up. So I really want to thank you, Abhijit, Sanghamitra, and Anil for the participation. Obviously, if you have any other questions, all of us are around, so you can also approach us during the break. And otherwise, back to Mark. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Uli. Thank you, Sanghamitra ma'am.
Thank you.
Anil, Abhijit. It was pretty inspiring,
Thank you.
intense, lovely.